Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kinsley, and I am one of the CSMs with High Counselor, and we are so happy to have you all with us. I am going to give everyone another minute or so to get logged in so that nobody misses anything important. I know you all are so excited to hear from our guest speaker today, and we are just so thankful to have her and to have you all here with us. And so while we just wait one more minute, if you feel comfortable dropping in the chat or posting a comment where you're joining from, I think it's always fun to see the different areas and time zones that are represented when we do webinars. I am joining you from South Georgia, so representing the East Coast. So feel free to just drop in the comments where it is that you are joining from. We're certainly happy to have you. Well, I will go ahead and get started with just a brief overview of High Counselor. Would just like to share with you, what we do. And so we are a career accelerator. And we help job seekers land their dream job through a 4-week training period that covers important topics and concepts that are typically asked during those interviews. And so we assist candidates with those HR, behavioral, and technical sessions. Our team also optimizes your resume and LinkedIn profile. We have sessions on topics like networking, salary negotiation, all things that we help you with during that networking phase. We have one-on-one sessions with instructors. We have one-on-one mock interviews. So everything that you need to feel confident and comfortable moving into that interview process. We also have an automated email networking system that networks for our candidates. We're able to provide direct referrals to companies that are within our network. And so all of these resources are available to you once you join the program. And I do want to talk about one of our most unique services and one of my favorite aspects, the real world projects that we have to offer. So these are on LinkedIn Live and within our learning management system. And it's really just a great way for you to get more of that hands-on experience, to work within a team, and to have something to talk about on your resume and in an interview. And so we are currently assisting candidates that are interested in software engineering and data-related roles. I know this was a very brief overview of High Counselor, but we do have info sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you are interested in learning more about High Counselor, feel free to join that info session tonight. I'll be sharing the link with you a little later on in today's webinar, but you are always welcome to go to our website, highcounselor.com, to sign up for that info session, to learn more, and to see when our next cohort start date is. That next start date is actually May 30th. That's a Tuesday because of the upcoming holiday. So definitely just encourage you to take a look at our website, at our LinkedIn profile, so that you can learn more about upcoming events and just things that we've got going on. So I am happy now to turn it over to our guest speaker. I know that's why you all are here. And so we are going to be focusing on cracking that data science interview, especially during this tough time. I think it's so important that when you're able to land an interview that you are cracking it. So we are so excited to have Ajasvi here. She is working as a senior data scientist with Microsoft. Before accepting her position at Microsoft, she received offers from Amazon, Facebook, Wayfair, and a few machine learning startups in the Bay Area. She has a bachelor's of arts in data science with a minor in computer science from the University of California, Berkeley. And during her time there, completed data science related research and was a part of a year-long data science fellowship where she consulted nonprofit organizations on how to leverage big data analytics and machine learning to expand their reach and accelerate impact. We are so happy to have you. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Equally excited to be a part of High Counselor as a guest speaker. So today I'm going to focus on how to crack the data science interview, especially for top tech and FAANG companies. But a lot of the findings that I'll be sharing, lots of the tips and advice is transferable to smaller companies and even to startups. All right, can we go to the next slide? So the flow of today's session is divided into approximately 4 topics. First, I'll talk about data scientists and who are the skill sets that you need to be a data scientist. Then I can talk about the job application process for FAANG companies. Then I'll stop in the middle for Q&A, talk about interview tips, tricks, advice, the meat of the content, and then we'll end it off with more Q&A and how to navigate layoffs. So let's begin. How do you define a data scientist? Now, this term is thrown around so much. It's one of the sexiest jobs of the century. AI boom, ML boom, whatever you have it, data scientists are driving it. So a data scientist is somebody who sits at the intersection of 3 domains. You have computer science, math, and business. A data scientist is somebody who can integrate all 3 in their day-to-day jobs. And sometimes they are a little bit more into computer science, a little bit more into math, and sometimes a bit more into business. And depending on who you are, your requirements, your what skill sets you have, you can fall into any of these categories and still be called a data scientist. Next slide. Yeah. So at FAANG, these are big companies, which means that they have multiple different titles, multiple different jobs that you can apply for. And on the screen in front of you are some of the titles that I have seen people have. These are people that I've worked with in my day-to-day job. They're all data scientists, but their titles say different things. They can be called a machine learning engineer, AI engineer, analyst, business analyst, data engineer, what have you. So if you see any of these job postings come up, treat them like a data science position and apply to them with the tips and tricks that I talk about today. Specifically, let's talk about what each sort of segment data scientists do. At Big Tech, we have lots of raw data, and data engineers and software engineers convert this raw data into tabular form. Tabular forms can be in the form of databases, along with different streams, any way to broadcast this data to a larger audience. Then this data is worked on by 3 different components. So you can run experiments on it, you can visualize it, and you can model it. So if you run experiments on it, you are more doing the work of an economist or a statistician. If you visualize data, you'll be doing lots of work of an analyst, a business analyst, product analyst. And if you're modeling that data, that means you are creating machine learning models that predict something using that data or that classify users, segment users, then you'll be called a machine learning engineer, an applied machine learning engineer. And at the end of this process, all 3 streams lead to the same end, which is you want to help the business by giving them strong insights. And this job is done by, a product analyst, decision scientist, data analyst, business analyst. They're all a big unit, and depending on the team that you're in, or the project that you're working on, you might focus a little bit on different aspects at different points of time. I personally focus a lot on modeling and experimentation, but some projects that I've worked with have worked primarily with visualization, and that's completely fine. So what I'll talk about today is the skill sets that you need and the tips for covering all these different aspects of being a data scientist. Great. So along with technical skills, you need a few foundational skills. Communication is a big one. In my day-to-day, I give presentations on a daily basis. So you need to have good communication skills, you need to have good presentation skills, and you need to be on your toes in anticipating questions. Beyond that, you need some database knowledge, which includes SQL, Hadoop, Python, to name a few. Most FANG companies have their own database languages in the back end, so they don't expect you to know what the language they use, but they expect you to pick it up quickly. We also have some modeling and math aspects to the job. I would say foundationally, you need to have a good grasp of linear algebra, matrices, predictive and classification algorithms, causal inference techniques. And if you want to specialize, you can pick up a few specializations, usually just one or two, which includes natural language processing, computer vision, recommendation systems, etc. And to go back to my previous topic, you need to know the business, you need to know the user experience before you can help the user in any way. And to understand the business experience is going beyond the user journey sometimes. Sometimes you need to know how to talk in math terms, talk in money terms, talk in business terms to tell the users, to tell the upper management what benefit you'll have in terms of monetary value with each model that you're building or each insight that you're bringing to the table. All right, so the process of applying for data science jobs is quite long. The first is finding job postings that match your qualifications. This, as I've said before, does not have to be strictly data scientist, can be an analyst, decision scientist, ML engineer, anything. They're all data scientists. Step one would be to submit your resume and apply through LinkedIn, company websites, referral links, or through recruiters. This is a long process, but I'll delve deep into each point later. Step two, after you submit your resume, after you apply, if they like your resume, they'll call you in for an initial screen. So right in the initial screen, they don't ask any technical questions. They don't ask you to code. They just ask you generic, what you've done in the past, basic languages that you know, understanding your background, your previous experience. Then if they like you, you move on to the next round, which is the technical screen. Technical screen is a lead code style question and is very easy to prepare for if you put in the time. Once you clear the technical screen, you will go to the full day on-site interview loop, which will have two kinds of interviews. You'll have a few behavioral interviews and a few technical interviews. The technical interviews are a lot like the technical screen. So if you are able to pass the technical screen, you should have enough confidence that you'll pass the technical aspect of things. And the behavioral interviews are to see if you will be a good team player, if you will merge with the culture of the company, and to see how you navigate working with your teammates, your problem solving skills, etc. Let's say you've done all those and now you've gotten the offer in hand. Now, how do you make it better? How do you negotiate? So we'll also talk about that soon. Great. Step 0 is asking, is this job suitable for me? Lots of data science jobs that I have noticed have a lot of requirements. These requirements are more than PM or software engineering requirements sometimes, because this is such a high, usually a high paying as well as niche job. So I would say if you qualify for at least 50% of the requirements, you should apply. Years of experience or tech stack that they mentioned deter you from applying, because as I've said before, FANG companies use their own languages most of the times and their own dashboards, their own systems. So you don't need to have that much of a knowledge base to start off. Next slide, please. Great. How do you apply for jobs? Number one tip is to go get referrals. Find somebody on LinkedIn who works as a data scientist or whatever title you're applying for at that company. Reach out to them, have a coffee chat, and then talk about your experience and get a referral from them. If you have any friends in companies, ask them out for referrals. If you have any alumni network connections, ask them for referrals. High Counselor also will provide you referrals for companies in their domain. A big factor is the timing. A lot of jobs open up during certain timeframes. For new grad roles, for example, they start opening up from August, and most of them finish by March. So this time frame is when you'll see most of the job postings, and you should start applying to the jobs as soon as they open. An example for this would be I was on the recruiting team for some new grads at Microsoft, and in the first day, we had more than 1,000 resumes submitted. And this is in the first 24 hours. So I would recommend as soon as the job opens, apply. Or sometimes if you have friends, they can tell you before a job is being posted. So you're even more prepared to apply as soon as possible because you want your resume at the top of the stack, not at the bottom. The third tip would be to tailor your resume to fit the job description. A lot of job postings have certain keywords and phrases in them that they are looking for. So make sure that you try to incorporate as many of those keywords into your resume as possible. Lots of fan companies have recruiters who will read through a resume, and because they don't have a technical backing, they will look for those keywords that they have mentioned in the job posting. Some companies also use resume scanners. These resume scanners again look for some keywords for important markers. So try to incorporate as many of those as possible. I know a few websites that you can just Google, which will try to see if your resume will pass a resume screen. So you just put the resume and the job description, and they'll tell you what match they have. The higher percentage match, the better. And then you can also make sure that the resume is readable, that it's not highly formatted in a weird way, which will mess it up. So using such online resources is always great. Along with that, always make sure to link a blog that you might write. This is not a requirement, but if you have one, link it into your resume. Link your GitHub repo onto your resume as well. And obviously make sure that you're contributing to your GitHub repo with any data science related projects on the side. Kaggle is a big resource as well. Lots of candidates for data science positions look at Kaggle projects and challenges. So if you participate in them, even if you haven't won any, that's perfectly fine. Still link your Kaggle to show that you're very proactive in going out and doing data science outside your job. All right, so before I jump into tips and tricks, I'll stop for a minute, ask any questions that people have about the general process for application to jobs, and any concerns, questions, I can answer them.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we do have a few questions that came in, and feel free to continue to drop questions in the comment box. So someone is asking about statistics and probability for mathematics.
Yeah, for sure. Statistics and probability are big ones. It's good to know them because you'll use them on a daily basis in your job. However, when you're applying to jobs, very rarely will they throw at you a deep probability question. They're mostly like stats 1 level question, probability 1 level questions. For stats specifically, the kind of stats that I recommend you focusing on will be tests. So statistical tests like t-tests, statistical significance tests, understanding some keywords like bias, variance, mean, median, mode will be very helpful. Understand t-tests. So any test that you can do which will help you distinguish between experiments to see if experiment A or B was better will be a good tool to have in your kit. In my experience, I've been rarely asked these questions, but I have heard that some companies like to ask. So always good to prepare.
Great, thank you. Do you have any advice on how to learn about the business side?
Yeah, for FANG in tech, it can be a little hard sometimes. Lots of data scientists, however, work with client-facing roles. I, for example, work with the gaming side. So before my job interview, I downloaded the games on my laptops. I played a few games. I understood the user experience. I also understood where they use data science. For example, if you're applying to Netflix, know what the user experience looks like. Know that they have games that are recommended to users, so that's where they use data science. They use lots of analytics in the back end to see what users are playing, what kinds of games are doing well. So ask yourself, what do I need to see to check if a game is doing well? Would it be hours played, median hours played? Would I segment it by country, by user profile? How will I track users' play history? How can I segment users who are highly watching horror movies versus those who only watch comedy movies? So like think about it a little bit before you jump in. At the same time, I understand that some aspects of being in FANG are not user facing. You might be in a security team, for example. In a position like that, go for your interview by searching a little bit about what usual security teams do at big companies. And then once in the interview, ask your interviewer about the business. Ask how they use data science to benefit the business. And they will be more than happy to guide you through it. So just be proactive and let your interviewer know that you are constantly thinking about the business as well as the technical aspects of being a data scientist. So just showing interest in the business in any way is a big plus point.
Great. Can you talk to us about the importance of Power BI in data scientist careers?
Yeah, Power BI is a very important tool, but I wouldn't say it's the most important. It's a toolkit that you can always pick up on the job. I did not know Power BI before I joined Microsoft, but I took one course. I asked a bunch of people who worked with Power BI there, and they were able to help me through it, get me up to speed. If you know Power BI, it's great tool to have. If you don't know it, it's fine. It should not be a deterrent from applying for that job.
Great. Okay, any advice or tips on how we could go about making a blog?
Yeah. Um, so I would start with doing some market research on different kinds of data science aspects. If a certain domain really interests you, I don't know, like sports, let's say, you can always see where sports and data science meet. Do some research and start off on Medium, for example. That's a very good platform to blog. The added benefit is that if your blogs do really well, if your articles have good viewership, you get money as well. You can always post on LinkedIn about small snippets, what you've learned. That's always a great platform as well. Additionally, you can always add to, make a website on itself, Blogspot, any online blogging resource. But I would say for sure try Medium. That's a great resource.
Great. Okay, our next question. Will I be able to get a job in data science with self-learning and hands-on personal projects?
Yeah, I think you need to have a good understanding, a good technical base. Self-learning is possible if you have previously worked in the tech space, if you worked as a software engineer and you want to transition to data science. I would say self-learning would be more than good, very enough to get the job. But let's say you were in a non-technical role, not in tech, and you want to transition to data science. Self-learning, you would need to spend more time taking some online courses, perhaps doing some 2 3 week programs with companies to really get up to speed. But for sure, yeah, you can easily get the job by self-learning.
Great. Okay, we have just a few more questions and then we will transition back to the rest of the presentation. But our next question is how much of the interview is case studies open-ended versus hard coding a technical business problem using Python, SQL, etc.?
Yeah, great question. I'll dive deeper into it soon, but I would say it's a good mix of both. Um, I think out of the interview loop that you have 4 interviews. One is usually case study, one is a hard coding problem, and one is like one or two are behavioral. So I'll dive deeper into that soon.
I imagine that we'll also cover some negotiation tips, which is our next question.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then we'll take one more question and move back into the presentation. So when they ask for leak code questions, at what difficulty level do they typically ask? So
I'd say medium difficulty. Easy, medium is a good ballpark. Some interviewers will ask you a hard lead code question, but I don't think I've seen like that's probably like 5% of the cases, because mostly they want to see that you can code in SQL or Python instead of the dynamic languages like Java. So I think if you do medium, you'll be great.
Perfect. Okay. We have a few more questions. I'm going to hold those until the end. Continue to drop your questions in the comments. I promise I will get to all of them. And with that, we will go ahead and get back to the presentation. Okay.
Sounds good. Okay. So now let's jump into the meat of the interview tips and tricks. Once you apply for the job, they screen your resume, they like you, and they call you for the initial screen. Now, initial screen is high-level technical questions. Lots of companies like Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon do these. They will not ask you to code. Sometimes it'll just be a call, like an audio call, not even a video face-to-face. They ask you questions about SQL, Python, R, sometimes about Java. Questions include, example would be, tell me all the kinds of joins that you can do in SQL, or tell me all the kinds of relational databases that you've worked with. What are the differences? What are the similarities? They might ask you about machine learning jargon and some probability questions. So this machine learning jargon is just to make sure that you know the basic models that we usually work with. I would say get up to speed with the technicalities of them as well. They might ask you, okay, tell me 2 different kinds of prediction models that you can use, or 2 different kinds of classification models that you can use. So you say something like support vector machines and logistic regression. Then they'll ask you the difference between the two. It'll be very high level. They won't ask you too much. Some of them can ask you certain keywords in machine learning. So they can ask you, for example, what is backpropagation? What is a loss function? What is hyperparameter tuning? All these are fair ballpark questions. They can ask you some data visualization questions, which include, give me 2 types of visualization techniques that you use. You can say bar chart and pie chart. Then they will ask you when to use bar chart, when to use pie chart. If I have data that represents each user and I want to visualize it, how best should I visualize it? And then you ask them a few questions and, come to a conclusion that scatterplot is the best way. So these are all great techniques for preparing for the data visualization questions. The last part is metric making through product knowledge. Metric making is slightly tricky and you need to practice by yourself a few times before you can go for the actual answer in the job. Metric making is asking yourself, how can I calculate impact? A question that I was asked in the past was, we release a new feature in a social network company. How do I check if the feature is doing well? And how do I check if users are engaging with that feature? So a possible method of answering this would be asking what the feature does, and then taking things into account like clicks, impressions, number of shares, likes, dislikes, number of comments. to check for engagement. And then you can come up with a few metrics like number of comments per user or number of clicks per impression per user. So these are all good metrics to keep in mind. A few metrics that companies love to use are active users. So they love to use daily active users, monthly active users in their metric making questions, and usually a combination of metrics. So daily active users divide by monthly active users. If you mention a metric like that, that is a double green point. That's you'll get double points for mentioning combinations because they love to see innovation. They love to see how you can best use the resources available to you to make a very comprehensive metric. Great. So here are my tips for the initial screen. Brush up on the following that I've mentioned: SQL, Python, probability. Understand machine key terms, understand different kinds of machine learning models. You don't have to know how to code all the machine learning models, but from a comprehensive foundational point of view, understand from a high level what these models do. Get up to speed with causal inference and data visualization. So causal inference and data visualization do not have as many online resources as SQL and machine learning kinds of questions. So for causal inference, read a few Medium posts on methodologies for causal inference. We have a few standard industry and academic procedures that we take for causal inference. We have a few statistical tests that we do. T-test, G-test are examples of that. We do something called matching, which is a good causal inference technique. We also use double machine learning for causal inference, and we use the usual control treatment methodology for causal inference. So learn about all these different techniques online. A few books on causal inference you can pick up, go through them. They're great resources. And then for data visualization, a few YouTube, you just watch a few YouTube videos on different data visualization charts and techniques, and that should be good enough knowledge because it's very basic, but they want to test how intuitive you are and how quick you are with figuring out what data visualization will be the best for a given problem. So beyond the technicalities of it, understand what the company does, understand where you as a data scientist can contribute. If possible, email your recruiter beforehand and ask them what team will interview you or who will take your initial screen. If it's just a recruiter taking an initial screen, you can assume they will not ask that many company-related questions. But if it's a full-time employee of the company asking you, then expect some company-related questions to come your way. So prepare beforehand. Then go through similar companies' Kaggle datasets and challenge project descriptions. Now, this is a little more intensive, but it will pay off in a great way. I will give you an example to explain. I recently found a job posting for Nordstrom, for example. And so you find the job posting for Nordstrom. It's a company that sells clothes. So you know what the company does, and you know that they have an online presence where they use data scientists to make recommendations to users based on past purchases. You go on Kaggle and search clothes recommendation systems. And lo and behold, you will see H&M pop up. So H&M has lots of Kaggle competitions that they run. And they have data that they provide for those Kaggle competitions through their internal resources. Look at the data. Look at what kind of features they have. Look at what kind of projects they've asked, challenge projects that they have asked on Kaggle, because these come up quite a lot in the actual interview. So just remember that these companies have a select data resource, and all questions that they ask will come from that data resource. So getting up to speed with similar companies is very helpful in preparing you for the initial screen. All right. So let's say you pass the initial screen and now you're in the technical screen. This will be a one-on-one programming session, or it can be a HackerRank, which you have to do on your own, or it can be a take-home test. Three possibilities come up. Sometimes you'll have the take-home test to be like a HackerRank, or it is a more case study-based take-home test. The questions that are usually asked for HackerRanks and one-on-one programming screens, and some HackerRank-like take-home tests are SQL or Python manipulation. They will give you a certain table and they will say, write a query to find the most active users in the past 3 months, for example. And these queries just get more complicated each round. They can ask you Python related questions, which are more dynamic programming, but they'll usually be easy or medium because they focus more on SQL and data manipulation in data science related interviews. And the last is algorithmic questions. So these are very, very rare, but they can ask you in a one-on-one to code a certain kind of model in front of you. So they'll give you a Jupyter notebook and give you a data resource, and then they will ask you that I would like to make a classification model using any Python notebook, and you can go ahead and start programming. That's a possibility that can also occur. The best ways to prepare, because so many kinds of questions are possible, I would recommend going to LeetCode. LeetCode is a great resource for both SQL and Python related questions. To prepare for the technical screen, go to Glassdoor and search up the company name along with the job title, and you will see similar questions that have been asked before. And try to answer those questions before you see the actual answers to prepare yourself as a question bank. Just know that the technical screen, if you are asked SQL or Python related questions, it's very similar to a software engineering technical screen. So it's nothing to worry too much about. If you are good at software engineering, if you have a solid foundation for SWE, you will be perfectly well set up for data science. For the take-home test, I have a few more tips and tricks, but ideally, I would say start early and make sure that you understand the problem properly before jumping into it. So take some time, read the questions twice or thrice. Take-home tests are nice because they don't have a time limit. They'll give you 2-3 days to do it or a week to do it. Try to get it done in a comprehensive manner by giving yourself enough time at the beginning. So tips for the technical screen are, you're in the technical screen now. If you have a one-on-one interview, ask the interviewer questions and walk through your thoughts. Let's say you are making a SQL query, which is nested. So you have a SQL query within a SQL query. So walk your thoughts. Explain why you are doing a nested SQL query instead of two different queries. If you get stuck at any point, ask the interviewer. For example, a completely valid question to ask the interviewer is, hey, I know how to do this query in Python instead of in SQL. Is it okay if I use Python? Completely understandable. And usually they are very accommodating. So be sure to ask before you start. And then once you have started the question, always walk your thoughts. So you start writing the question and keep talking. Say that I am now selecting A, B, C columns from this table. I am inner joining A table with B table, and I am writing this if else where clause to find certain kinds of users, to segment them before I go into finding which kinds of users are active. So constantly keep walking through your thoughts. As I mentioned before, if you are taking the take home, start early. Be alert. So get enough sleep, get enough food, water, be in a silent room. Make sure that you're not too stressed about other things when you're given the technical screen, because a lot of times the interviewer can pick up on nervousness, and that's not good. So be alert, be calm, and just walk your thoughts. Mentioned before, expose yourself to different packages and machine learning models. As a data scientist, I don't remember each package that I've ever used, and there's comprehensive documentation usually for each package. So let's say you're in an interviewer screen and you forget what function to use from a particular package. Ask your interviewer, ask them if it's okay to reference documentation, or if your interviewer can reference documentation for you. They're more than happy to do it. So always ask. Learn about different machine learning models. So keep up to speed with any new development that has happened in the machine learning space. Know what kinds of machine learning models are usually used. You have your usual prediction and classification models, but you also sometimes have time series models. So just know the names of them, know what they do. You don't have to know how to code them, just a basic understanding. Kaggle and GitHub for understanding machine learning models are your best friends. Practice lead code in case of a hacker rank coming your way. If you have a one-on-one interview, then also use lead code. And then the best tip that I have is find a friend who is in a similar situation as you and do time-bound practice sessions with them. So pretend that you are the interviewer and interview them, ask them to walk their thoughts about a certain problem and get to that problem, get to the solution of the problem with them in a timed fashion. So an hour you have to solve this problem and walk your thoughts again with them. So this will make you less nervous before the interview, and it will make you more aware of how you function when you are talking through your thoughts. How to if you make a mistake, you can always walk through the mistake with the interviewer, and till the time you correct it, it's perfectly fine. Great. So let's say you've passed the interview round for technical screen and now you are on the on-site interview circuit. FANG is notoriously known for having long on-sites. Pre-pandemic, they would fly clients out to different cities where their headquarters were and give them accommodation, food, everything for a day, and have them do the interview circuit over a day's time. But now mostly it's remote. So again, prepare for the interview circuit by getting enough sleep, getting enough food, make sure you're well rested and less stressed. The interview screen is a mix of behavioral and technical questions. Usually it's 3 to 5 different interviews, and it's the makeup of these interviews is different in different companies, but usually of all the interviews that you do on the on-site, one of them will be with the hiring manager. A hiring manager is somebody who will be your manager if you get hired, and they're hiring for their team essentially. Usually, hiring managers have veto power, which means you had, let's say, 5 different interviews, 5 different interviewers throughout your on-site. All of them said good things about you, but your hiring manager did not like the way you talked to him or did not like the way that you talked about a particular problem. They did not like you. They have veto power, so they can say, I don't like this candidate, let's move on to somebody else. So my tip would be to try to be nice to everybody that you interview with, because one of them will be your hiring manager. And impressing them, making sure that they like you, is one of the most important things in the interview. So let's go into the behavioral questions a little bit. Usually the behavioral interviews follow a strict pattern. They will first ask you about your resume, your past experience, about your past projects that you've mentioned on your resume, and they will do a questioning session. So they'll ask you specifics about your project, for example. They'll ask you why you used one particular model and not the other, what considerations you had to make, how you cleaned the data, what problems you faced while making that project, and how you're going to take it to the next step. They will also ask you product-based and team scenario-based questions. These are predominantly in the generic space of you have a conflict with your teammate, how do you handle it? or talk about a situation where you've had a conflict with a teammate. How did you handle it? Talk about a situation where you had to go out of your way to deliver a project. What did you do? What were the learnings? Um, Very generic behavioral questions. So nothing out of the ordinary here. Um, some behavioral questions are also product based. So they will not ask you to code anything. Instead, they will ask you a back and forth discussion about a product. For example, they want to put a new banner on a website that the company has. They ask you, as a data scientist, what is your recommendation? How should we go about putting this new banner on the website? So it's a very open and ended question. And the expectation is that you ask the interviewer questions before you start answering them. So you ask, okay, what kind of banner is it? Who is the target audience? Is there a similar banner already present? And then you recommend a data science approach to that problem. You can, for example, say, let's do an A/B test. Let's put this banner on page 4, and let's put this banner on page 3. Then we can see how many users visited each page and saw each banner. We can also see how many users interacted with each banner. And based on that, we can do a comparative analysis of both pages. Whichever one has a higher turnout, higher engagement, we put the banner there. So it's a very generic question that I gave you, but on an average, this is the kind of questions that they ask. They just want to see how you think, how you approach a problem from a data science perspective, um, and how you navigate cross questioning. So, for technical questions, if you were able to answer the technical questions in the initial screen and the technical screen, I would say you will be fine for the technical questions. They will be very similar as the technical screen. Usually, they have one interview which has Python based questions and one different interview which has SQL based questions. Python questions will sort of be like traversing a linked list, traversing a stack, how to like basic lead code software engineering questions, easy, medium. And SQL questions can range from medium to hard lead code, where they give you a data set and a table, multiple tables sometimes. And they'll ask you to like write some complicated functions which include ranges, which are window functions. They might ask you to find um, consecutive months, so that includes time manipulation with SQL. So make sure that you have a good understanding of all different kinds of lead code hard SQL questions that can be asked. So that's two technical interviews that will for sure be happening. Sometimes they ask a third technical interview, which is mostly on generic data science topics. This can be p-values. They'll ask you about p-values, how are they calculated, what kind of tests that can be used to check p-values, A/B testing, statistical thinking and inference. So this is again the causal inference that I've talked about in the past. They can ask you, so listen, we ran an experiment, and here are the results. So how would you interpret these results? So you have to like walk through the process, ask them questions, walk them through your thoughts. They can sometimes ask metric making. They can also ask general machine learning jargon. For example, one of the interviews that I had asked me about the bias variance chart. And for 40 minutes, I was just talking about the bias variance chart. So make sure that you have good technical foundations for machine learning. And if you are ever in the interview setting and you don't know something that the interviewer is asking you, feel free to say that you don't know, but you would be happy to learn right now, or happy to get some documentation on it and then come back to the interview. So be open with your on-site interviewers and be nice to them, because one of them is your hiring manager and they have veto power. Great. Let's talk about some tips for the on-site. They're a mix of the previous tips that I've talked before. LeetCode is a great resource. Glassdoor is a great resource for behavioral and product-based questions. GitHub repos exist for probability, machine learning, A/B testing, p-value questions. Just go on GitHub and search probability, and somebody will have made a repo which is a good crash course, a good one-pager on probability. Go through it and you will be good to go. Understand different machine learning jargon from textbooks. Know different classification names, predictive names, algorithm names, when to use which, what is the difference between them. Know ensemble techniques. These usually combine multiple different machine learning models. Companies love it when you, as I've mentioned before, they love when you combine different things. So be up to speed with different ensemble techniques, different ensemble methodologies. They will cross question you. So make sure that you have good knowledge about each machine learning model that you talk about. Yeah, understand some statistical tests as well, which is chi-squared, t-test, so on and so forth. They can ask you about distribution, so like the Bell diagram, the normal distribution curve. What does it showcase? Where's the mean in it? Where's the mean in it? Where's the median? How do you go about looking at the variance on a bell curve? I know the basics of causal inference. Once again, you don't have to know. You don't have to be an expert in causal inference. Just know the different techniques used. Usually, reading up on it a few weeks before will set you up for success in the actual interview. Okay, behavioral tips for on-site interview tips. Always ask clarifying questions. When you are asked a question, my go-to mantra is to always ask a clarifying question immediately afterwards. Walk your thoughts, walk the interview through your entire thought process. Because sometimes you are headed in the wrong direction and the interviewer will guide you back. They will be nice and they will tell you that you may want to think about it in a different fashion. Are you sure this is what you want to do? They'll give you tips. They'll give you hints that you are correct or incorrect. Yeah, be confident, be calm, be kind and respectful. The people who are interviewing you have full-time job responsibilities and they have other deadlines, but they are volunteering to take time off to interview you. So be respectful of that and be thankful at the end of each interview. If you get stuck at any point, just say so and they will help you out. And if you honestly don't know what to do, absolutely stuck, don't even know how to start a problem, just ask them and they will give you some hints. All right, next slide, please. Great. So now let's say we've done through the entire circuit. We did the initial screen, technical screen, the entire on-site loop. Now we have the job in hand. We have an offer in hand. How to negotiate the job offer? I would say rinse and repeat, get more job offers and then leverage them against each other. Companies usually match or they give you a higher salary, give you more bonuses. They can even start you off at a higher level. Sometimes you can leverage offers from different industries. When I was interviewing, I did this. I had offers from tech companies as a data scientist, and I had offers from consulting companies as a data analyst. So I told my tech recruiter that I was confused between two industries, tech or consulting, and if they could increase my offer for the tech roles for the tech company, I will choose the tech company, and they were able to get me a good number back. Also, sometimes we don't have another job offer to negotiate with, especially in the current market circumstances. So in this, the best bet would be to try and leverage other aspects. So you might not get a salary bonus, but you can get a sign-on bonus increase. You can tell them that you will be relocating for the job from a different state. They will give you a relocation bonus in that case. You can talk about if you have any dependents, you can talk about those to your recruiter and they will try to get you a good number back. You can also leverage your experience. If you just have one job offer, tell them that you are a good candidate, you are applying for other jobs, and you want to work at the company really bad, but you want a better number back. And usually they are accommodating and they will get you a good number back. Yeah. Um, okay, so now the heavy talk. Layoffs are a big factor to take into account right now. Multiple companies have a hiring freeze, but that should not stop you from preparing for interviews. Know that data science is a very hot job. Um, AI is leading the stock market right now. It's increasing the stock prices for Google, for Microsoft, for Adobe. They are hiring and looking for AI experts. So even though there is a hiring freeze, they really want data scientists. Just have that thought in your mind and um, start with the interview preparation process. I would say to be recession proof, keep your resume and LinkedIn updated. Maintain a healthy and engaged network on LinkedIn. This means reach out to different users on LinkedIn who are data scientists at different companies. Talk to them, have coffee chats with them. If you have a blog, keep posting to the blog. If you prefer to post on LinkedIn instead, make sure you get a healthy engagement back. Keep learning about new AI trends and tech stacks. Um, Machine learning, data science is a very fast growing field. It's predicted to grow to 36% by 2030. So there will be new advancements, and you are expected to keep track of them. Know that you will be required to do lead code. So it's always great to brush up on lead code once in a while. Take online courses if possible. Take LinkedIn certificates. You have free certifications available online. You can be a part of certain companies like High Counselor, which help you boost your knowledge in 3 to 4 weeks. Have personal projects. All of this really helps to make you a good candidate. And more importantly, it solidifies your basics, your foundations, so that you are set up for success. Great. And then the last tip for being recession proof is to once you get a job, to make sure that it's in a team which is important and profitable. This is a very gray area. I completely understand, but try to be in a team which has a high growth potential. Not only will it set you up for success in your career, but it will ensure that you get good projects, you get good managers, you are always a core requirement for the company. Yeah, so this was my quick talk. I would love to get some questions and answers. I can already see some in the chat. So, yeah, ask away.
All right. So we've had so many questions and comments. So thank you everyone for that. Just trying to work my way back up to the top so that we don't miss any. Okay. So our first question, let's see here. Is it necessary to go for any coaching or is self-learning enough? I will definitely let you answer that question, but just to let you know as well, that High Counselor is a great option for that. We have live projects and learning pathways available to candidates, and would love to be able um, to give you more information about what services we provide at the info session that is being hosted tonight.
Yeah, it totally depends on you. Honestly, if you think you understand machine learning, if you're doing well with lead code style questions in both Python and SQL, then you don't need external, like you don't need external help that much. But let's say you are starting off fresh from a different industry, you were in consulting before, as an accountant, for example, now you want to be a data scientist. In that case, the learning curve will be steeper. So if you can do it yourself, well and good. But if you need resources to get you up there, um, there's multiple online.
Great. If you already work as a data scientist and want to move forward in specialization, Should I focus on data engineering elements or MLOps?
Oh, that's a good question. ML ops is very niche, versus data engineering is more broad. So that's a consideration to keep in mind. ML ops is also very company specific. But at the same time, because it's so niche, many companies will pay you more for ML ops. So a few considerations, I would say make a pro and cons list for both, and then try to see if you need the stability of being a data engineer and the ease of moving between companies, or you want the nicheness of a ML ops.
Great. Tips on getting the job at the entry level.
Entry level data scientists. So I joined entry level. They don't have too high expectations of you, and they are more willing to take a risk on you if you're entry level. I would say get a good internship before you apply for a full time job. Get an internship as a data scientist, can be paid or unpaid. You can also get some part time work experience working with a startup, a nonprofit as a data scientist. Once you get that experience, apply for full time jobs, entry level, and make sure that you have good projects on your resume. Make sure that you have good experience, and make sure that your lead code skills are up to the mark. Get good referrals, and you should be good to go.
Great. You are answering so many questions all at once. It's great. Let's see. Is hands-on machine learning book good enough for self-education?
Yeah, I think you need to, before you say that this book is good enough, you should ask yourself if you understand the concepts correctly. I personally prefer to watch YouTube videos instead of reading books because I don't have the attention span anymore. Um, but it totally depends on you. I would say read the books, watch a few YouTube videos, and then try to apply your skill set on a Kaggle project, a personal project, or a Kaggle competition. If the skills transfer, you're great. If they don't transfer, get another book, watch a few more YouTube videos, maybe do a course, and that'll be fine.
How often do employers allow candidates to use the internet or documentation in coding portions of interviews?
Very team dependent and very company dependent. Usually, they will not let you Google it on your own. Instead, the interviewer will Google it for you. So they will pull up the documentation, and then you can read through it when their screen is being shared with you.
How do you find recruiters to represent you?
So when you apply for a job, they automatically give you a recruiter. So they like assign you a recruiter. However, sometimes you can go on LinkedIn and search like university level recruiters. So that's what I did for my job at Microsoft. I looked for the Microsoft recruiter for my college. I reached out to her because all students from Berkeley went to her. So she was sort of vetting all of them. So I reached out to her directly on LinkedIn. But if you're not a university student, I would just say let the company handle it, and they will give you one.
That's an additional way that High Counselor can support as well through those networking courses. So if that is something that you are looking to grow in, just in terms of taking that first step to reaching out and carrying that conversation on, we do have those courses on networking as well. Let's see, how to build a data science profile.
A data science profile, like, do you mean like personal projects? If that means personal projects, find something that you're passionate about. Like I gave an example of sports. If you like sports, make a project with sports. Try to predict how to which player will perform well in a certain match, in a certain tournament. Try to see if that actually works. Companies love to see it when you are passionate about something and you apply data science to that passion.
Okay. All right, we have just a few more questions. Is it possible to switch from another domain to data science, especially for the first job?
For sure, easily. If it's a technical domain, even easier. But if it's, as I've mentioned before, a non-technical domain, it'll be a higher learning curve, but it's easy to transfer.
Let's see, we've got choosing between a career in data as a data scientist or a data analyst.
Um, I would say it's up to you. Um, data analysts, data scientists, sometimes at the same company can do the same things. A good way to answer that question would be once you have both the jobs of a data analyst and a data scientist, like both offers, ask the interviewer, ask the managers what kind of roles and responsibilities you're required to do, and then choose the one that you prefer. If you want to be more into modeling, more AI, that's mostly data sciencey a little bit more. But analysts usually are more product heavy. They do lots of presentations. They work a lot with the PMs, with the marketing team to get certain metrics out. So completely depends on you and the jobs that you're working for.
Great. Okay. And then our last question, where can I learn current AI trends? This person is a graduate student and has done a couple of projects in AI and is looking to hone up on those skills. And as we know, the industry is evolving fast. And so they are just saying that they get confused with what they should learn to keep up with those current trends.
Yeah, a good resource is go to Medium and go to company mediums. So, like YouTube has channels, companies have different channels on mediums where their data scientists post blogs. And I feel that has been such a great resource for me to keep up with the trends, not only with AI and machine learning, but also with what companies are doing. For example, you can go to like Medium, look for Airbnb Medium, and that lead you to the channel of Airbnb on Medium. And then under that, you have multiple different blog posts and articles about how they leverage data science on a day-to-day basis at Airbnb, what they do, how you can get better at data science, and so on and so forth. So my go-to is these blogs.
Great. Thank you so much, Ajasti. We just appreciate you so much and have learned so much. I am going to be dropping some links in the chat for you all. So I just want you to feel free to drop your feedback and suggestions via the feedback form that will be in the chat. Additionally, if you all are interested in applying to High Counselor's upcoming cohort that begins on May 30th, we are going to drop that application in the chat as well. We're also going to drop the link to the info session. So not only will you be able to apply, but you will also be able to attend that info session tonight to learn more about our program. We also want to make you aware of an opportunity that we have coming up to network with employers across the United States. It's a virtual job fair, June 1st. That's a Thursday. So we're going to drop that link. And then finally, if you would like to register for one of our upcoming real world life projects, we are going to drop the link to register in the chat. So the last thing that I want to encourage you to do is to follow us on social media. We are on Instagram at High Counselor 2022 and on LinkedIn. Again, just a great way to stay engaged with us. You'll be able to see our content, the events that we have coming up, all the good things. So that is all that I have. Ajasti, do you have any last tips or closing comments or anything else that you want to leave us with before we go today?
I think I'm good. But best of luck to everybody applying for jobs. Don't get discouraged. If you need any help, any tips, reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can just find me there by my first name, last name, company, and I'd be happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you all so much.
Thank
And
you.
we will see you at the next one. Thank you.